Think about Greenland. For, well, most of history, it was just this huge, frozen place on the edge of the map, right? But something is changing, and it's changing fast. That massive ice sheet is suddenly at the very center of a new global scramble for power, for wealth, and honestly for survival. You know this quote from former President Donald Trump? It just perfectly captures that shift. All of a sudden, this remote territory isn't just a block of ice anymore. It's a strategic piece on a global chessboard. People are talking about it in terms of national security and a massive competition between superpowers. So, how did we get here? How did this, frozen wilderness become this high-stakes geopolitical hotspot? To really get it, we need to dive into a story that's got everything: buried treasure, superpower rivalries, and a really unsettling environmental paradox. Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is the renewed and very, very public interest from the United States. And as we're about to see, this was way more than just some passing headline. So, what the Trump administration did was they explicitly connected Greenland's resources directly to American national security. And that was a huge move. It basically reframed the whole island, not as some real estate deal, but as a critical strategic asset, something absolutely vital for navigating a world where supply chains are, let's face it, getting more and more fragile. All right, so what is this buried treasure that's got everyone so worked up? Well, underneath all that melting ice, there's a staggering amount of natural resources. We're talking iron ore, gold, oil, but the real prize, the thing that's a total game changer for our modern world, is something else entirely. Yep, rare earth elements. Think of them as the secret sauce in pretty much every piece of high-tech gear you can imagine. Your smartphone, the powerful magnets in an electric vehicle, the guidance systems in advanced missiles, they all depend on these things. And here's the kicker. Controlling the supply of these elements means you control a critical choke point in the entire global economy. Okay, now this table is really fascinating because it puts Greenland's two world-class deposits right next to each other. I mean, just look at the resources. They're both absolutely massive. The Tonbreeze deposit could even be the largest in the world. But now look down at this row here. Key co-located mineral. See, for Tonbreeze, it's other valuable stuff like tantalum and zirconium. But for Quantafield, it's uranium. And that one word right there changes the entire story. So yeah, that uranium. The Klenefeld deposit isn't just sitting next to a little bit of it, it's co-located with one of the world's largest deposits of uranium. And for the people of Greenland, the idea of mining radioactive material, well, it sparked this huge political backlash. People were really concerned about the environment and public health, and things got intense. And the political fallout was immediate and, frankly, dramatic. This whole controversy led directly to what people started calling the mining election back in 2021. A new government just swept into power on this issue, and one of the very first things they did was pass a law banning uranium mining. Just like that, the Kvanefjeld project was stopped cold in its tracks. Okay, but this whole local political fight is really just one part of a much, much bigger picture. Because this isn't just about what's in the ground, it's about geography. As the Arctic ice melts, Greenland's strategic importance is just skyrocketing. And that brings us to China's polar Silk Road. So back in 2018, China declared itself a near-Arctic state, which you can imagine was a pretty controversial claim. It was their way of justifying this growing ambition in the region. And while their attempts to invest in things like airports have been blocked so far, thanks to pressure from Denmark and the US, China's long-term goals for the Arctic are crystal clear. So what you end up with is this three-way geopolitical collision course. You've got the US, which is focused on securing resources and protecting its critical Patufic space base. Then you have China, playing the long game, using its financial muscle and its total dominance in mineral processing. And then there's Russia, which is flexing its military might, reopening all these old Soviet-era bases across the Arctic. It's getting crowded up there. And here's the huge economic prize they're all looking at. As that ice melts, this new Northwest Passage shipping route is opening up. And get this route is a staggering 7,000 kilometers shorter than the one we use now through the Panama Canal. I mean, that's a massive difference. Control of this passage means you control a brand new artery of global trade. But what's the real engine driving this whole geopolitical scramble? Well, it's a profound and, frankly, dangerous irony. The very same climate change that is unlocking all of Greenland's wealth is also threatening the entire planet. This is the great climate paradox of the Arctic. Take a look at this graph. What it's doing is mapping out a bunch of different futures for the Greenland ice sheet, all based on different warming scenarios. And believe me, these aren't just some abstract lines on a chart. Each one represents a potential reality for our planet's coastlines. This is serious stuff. And all that warming translates directly into the consequence that terrifies pretty much everyone: sea level rise. As you can see right here in panel A, every tiny fraction of a degree of warming commits us to more melting and higher oceans. But here's the really critical part. The process isn't slow and steady. It's not linear. And that brings us to this number. This is the number that scientists are watching very, very closely: 1.4 degrees Celsius of warming above pre-industrial levels. So, why does that one number matter so much? Well, because it looks like it's a critical tipping point. Once we cross that line, these feedback loops, things like darker, less reflective ice absorbing more of the sun's heat, they start to kick in. And the melting process can begin to accelerate, dramatically, all on its own. It stops being a slow, steady decline and turns into something much faster. And what's really sobering is this concept the graph shows called hysteresis. Basically, it means the ice sheet has a long memory. Let's say we warm the planet and the ice melts along one path. Even if we could somehow magically cool the planet back down, the ice wouldn't just regrow along that same path. It's not symmetrical. The damage could be, for all intents and purposes, irreversible. So all of this leaves Greenland at this monumental crossroads, right? It's caught between this huge economic opportunity, incredible geopolitical pressure, and a looming climate catastrophe. And the path to actually getting at all that wealth is, well, it's riddled with obstacles. Yeah, this isn't some simple gold rush where you just show up with a pickaxe. There are massive, real-world barriers here. I mean, think about it. For an island 3 times the size of Texas, there are only 93 miles of actual road. There's not nearly enough energy infrastructure for huge mining operations. And as we saw with the whole uranium ban, getting a social license from the local population is absolutely critical. But then, the rules can change on you. And honestly, this is probably the most important takeaway from all of this. For all the talk about Trump and China and Russia, the final say belongs to the people of Greenland, all 56,000 of them. It's up to them to navigate these incredible pressures and decide their own future. So we're left with this huge question. Climate change has basically turned the key, unlocking the resources and the strategic waterways of the Arctic. And as that ice recedes, a whole new era of competition and opportunity is rushing in to fill the void. What happens next? That isn't just a question about Greenland, it's one of the defining questions of our time.